I stood at the entrance of the Grandview Hotel, my heart pounding with excitement. The place was massive, with tall white columns and a fountain in front that sparkled in the afternoon sun. I'd never been to such a fancy place before, but I didn't care. Today was my daughter's wedding day, and nothing could ruin my happiness. I smoothed down my new suit one more time. It was the most expensive suit I'd ever bought. Dark blue, perfectly fitted. The salesman had assured me I looked like $1,000,000. I wanted to look my best when I walked Becca down the aisle. My little girl was getting married. Cars were pulling up, dropping off guests in elegant dresses and sharp tuxedos. I recognized some of them, friends of my ex-wife Trish and her new husband Ken. They gave me polite nods but didn't stop to chat. That was fine. I was used to being treated like I didn't quite belong in their world. I walked through the glass doors into the lobby. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, and soft piano music played somewhere in the background. My shoes clicked on the marble floor, and I felt a flutter of nervousness mixed with pride. Every penny of this wedding came from my bank account. The venue, the food, the flowers, the music, all of it. Over $150,000. But Becca was worth every cent. I checked my watch. 1 hour until the ceremony. I should find Becca and see if she needed anything. Maybe she was nervous and wanted her dad nearby. I'd been trying to reach her all week, but she'd been so busy with last-minute preparations. We hadn't talked in almost 10 days. As I headed toward the hallway that led to the bridal suites, I saw her. Becca was walking toward me, but something was wrong. She wasn't smiling. Her face was pale, and her eyes were red like she'd been crying. She wore a simple dress, not her wedding gown yet. "Becca!" I called out, opening my arms for a hug. "Sweetheart, what's wrong? Are you okay?" She stopped a few feet away from me. She wouldn't meet my eyes. My stomach dropped. "Dad," she said quietly. Her voice shook. "I need to talk to you." "Of course, honey. What is it?" I stepped closer, but she stepped back. "Dad, I'm sorry." She was crying now, tears running down her cheeks. "But you weren't invited. You need to leave." The words hit me like a punch to the chest. I couldn't breathe. "What? Becca, what are you talking about? I'm your father. I'm supposed to walk you down the aisle." I know," she sobbed. But she still wouldn't look at me. "But Mom and Ken thought. And Drew's mother said, they think it would be better if you weren't here." My mind spun. This couldn't be happening. Better? Becca, I paid for this entire wedding. Everything. The venue, the food, all of it. "I know, Dad, and we're grateful. But, Tom," a cold voice cut through the air. I looked up and saw Trish walking toward us, her face hard as stone. Ken was right behind her, wearing an expensive tuxedo and a look of barely hidden satisfaction. "Trish, what's going on?" I demanded. She crossed her arms. "This is a Collins family event now, Tom. Your presence would be awkward given your background. Kenneth will be walking Becca down the aisle. He's been more of a father to her these past few years anyway." The words stabbed into me like knives. I looked at Ken, who put his hand on Becca's shoulder in a protective way that made my blood boil. "My background?" I repeated slowly. "You mean the background where I worked 3 jobs to raise our daughter after you left us? The background where I paid for her entire education? The background where I'm paying for this entire wedding?" Guests were starting to notice the commotion. People stopped in the lobby, watching us. Whispers started spreading through the crowd. Trish's face remained cold. "Don't make a scene, Tom. This isn't about money. It's about what's appropriate. The Collins family has a certain standard. And frankly, your simple restaurant business doesn't fit the image." I looked at my daughter, waiting for her to defend me, to tell them they were wrong. But she just stood there, staring at the floor, tears falling onto the marble. Something inside me broke in that moment. Not just my heart, but something deeper. The hope that my daughter still loved me the way I loved her. I took a deep breath and straightened my shoulders. I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't make a scene. I see, I said quietly. I looked at Becca one last time, hoping she would say something, anything, but she remained silent. I turned and walked toward the exit. My legs felt heavy, like I was moving through water. Behind me, I heard Trish say something sharp to Becca, but I couldn't make out the words over the ringing in my ears. I pushed through the glass doors and stepped back into the sunlight. My car was in the parking lot, but I couldn't remember where. I just kept walking. I sat in my car in an empty parking lot behind a shopping center. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight, my knuckles turned white. I didn't remember driving here. I didn't remember anything after leaving the hotel, except the blur of tears in my eyes and the sound of my own breathing. An hour had passed. Maybe more. The sun was lower in the sky now. The wedding ceremony should be starting soon. Ken would be walking my daughter down the aisle. Ken, who'd known her for 3 years. Ken, who hadn't been there when she was sick with the flu at age 7. Ken, who hadn't taught her to ride a bike, or helped her with homework, or held her when she cried after her first heartbreak. I pulled out my phone and looked at the photos. There was Becca at age 3, chocolate ice cream all over her face, laughing at something I'd said. Becca at her high school graduation, hugging me tight, whispering, "I love you, Dad," in my ear. Becca at her college acceptance celebration, telling everyone that I was her hero. What happened to that girl? When did I become someone to be ashamed of? My finger hovered over her number. I could call. I could apologize. I could beg her to let me come back. Tell her I didn't care about being walked down the aisle. I just wanted to be there for her special day. But something stopped me. A feeling deep in my chest that wasn't just hurt anymore. It was anger. White hot, burning anger. I paid for everything. Every single thing. And they threw me out like garbage? Made me look like a fool in front of all those people? Treated me like I was too embarrassing to be seen with? My hands were shaking as I opened my banking app. I scrolled through the recent transactions. Payment to Grandview Hotel, $42,000. Payment to Elegant Affairs Catering, $38,000. Payment to Morrison Photography, $8,000. Payment to Bella Flora Flowers, $12,000. The list went on and on, all in my name, all from my accounts, all my money. A cold, clear thought cut through the fog in my brain. They didn't want me at the wedding? Fine. But it was my wedding. I paid for it. Everything was in my name. I dialed Mitchell's number. He was my lawyer and one of my oldest friends. He answered on the second ring. "Tom? How's the wedding going?" "Mitchell, I need your help. Now." My voice must have sounded strange, because he immediately switched to serious mode. What happened? I told him everything. The humiliation at the hotel entrance, Trish's cold words, Ken's smug face, Becca's silence. When I finished, Mitchell was quiet for a moment. "Those absolute..." He stopped himself. "Tom, I'm so sorry. That's unbelievable." "Can I cancel it?" I asked. "The wedding. Everything. It's all in my name, right?" "Let me check the contracts." I heard papers rustling on his end. "Yes. You're the contract holder for everything. You have legal right to cancel. The venue might keep the deposit, but..." "Tom, are you sure? This is your daughter's wedding day." "She told me I wasn't invited to my daughter's wedding day," I said. My voice sounded cold, even to my own ears. "I'm just giving them what they wanted. A wedding without me. Once you do this, there's no taking it back. The damage will be permanent." I thought about Becca's face, unable to even look at me. I thought about Ken's hand on her shoulder. Trish's cruel words about my simple restaurant business, the business that paid for their fancy lifestyle. "I'm sure. Make the calls." Mitchell didn't argue. He understood. "Okay, give me 30 minutes. Those 30 minutes felt like hours. I sat in that parking lot, watching people walk by with their shopping bags, living their normal Saturday lives. None of them knew that my world had just fallen apart. My phone buzzed. Mitchell, the venue is canceled. Since you're the contract holder and you've withdrawn authorization, they legally cannot host the event. The manager wasn't happy, but the contract is clear. What about the catering? Canceled. They're already on their way back. The food won't arrive. The photographer? Canceled. He was very confused, but he's packing up. The flowers? Already delivered, but I've arranged for them to be picked up within the hour. The DJ? The cake? Both canceled. The cake never left the bakery. The DJ is calling the venue now to confirm. My phone started buzzing with incoming calls. Trish's name appeared on the screen. I declined it. Then Ken. Declined. Then Becca. I stared at her name, my thumb hovering over the answer button. 30 seconds passed. I let it go to voicemail. Immediately, she called again. I turned off my phone. It's done, Tom, Mitchell said quietly. Everything's canceled. The wedding can't happen. I nodded even though he couldn't see me. Thank you. Are you okay? No, I said honestly, but I will be. Becca stood in the bridal suite, staring at herself in the full-length mirror. The wedding dress was perfect. White silk with delicate lace sleeves, a long train that spread across the floor like a cloud. It had cost $15,000, paid for by Drew's parents as their gift to her. She touched the pearl necklace at her throat. Ken had given it to her last week, saying it was more appropriate for a Collins family wedding than the simple gold locket her father had given her for her 16th birthday. That locket was sitting in a drawer at home now. Her 3 bridesmaids fussed around her, fixing her veil, touching up her makeup. They chattered excitedly about how beautiful everything looked, how perfect the day would be. But Becca felt a knot in her stomach that wouldn't go away. She kept seeing her father's face, the way his expression had crumbled when she told him to leave, the way he'd stood there, looking lost and broken, before finally walking away. Stop it, she whispered to herself. Mom was right. Ken was right. Drew's mother was right. Dad would have looked out of place with all these wealthy, important people. His simple ways, his casual manner, it would have embarrassed everyone. She was moving into a different world now. The Collins family represented her future. She had to let go of the past. But her hands trembled as she picked up her bouquet. A sharp knock on the door made everyone jump. The wedding planner, Christine, burst in. Her face was white as paper. We have a major problem, she said. What kind of problem? Asked Becca. The venue manager just informed me that the wedding cannot proceed. Thomas Reynolds has withdrawn his authorization and canceled the contract. The room went silent. Becca didn't understand. What do you mean canceled? The venue is paid for. Christine's phone buzzed. She looked at it and her face went even paler. The caterer just called. They're not coming. The food has been recalled. Another phone rang. One of the bridesmaids answered it, listened, then looked at Becca with wide eyes. That was the photographer. He's leaving. He said the contract was canceled. The flowers, Christine said, reading another message. They're being picked up. And the DJ just called. He's not coming. Neither is the cake. The words didn't make sense. Becca felt like she was underwater, hearing everything through a thick fog. I don't understand. How can everything be canceled? The door flew open, and Trish rushed in, her face twisted with rage. Ken was right behind her, frantically typing on his phone. That spiteful, horrible man, Trish screamed. How dare he do this? Mom, what's happening? Becca's voice came out small, frightened. Your father is destroying your wedding. That's what's happening. Trish paced back and forth like a caged animal. He's canceled everything out of pure revenge. Ken looked up from his phone, and something in his expression made Becca's blood run cold. Trish, he said quietly, all the contracts, every single one, They're in Tom's name. So what? We'll get new vendors. We'll... It's Saturday afternoon. Everything is booked. Everyone is committed. And even if they weren't... Ken's voice trailed off. He showed Trish his phone screen. Trish's face went from red to pale in seconds. What? Becca demanded. What is it? Ken spoke carefully, like he was afraid of the words. I pulled up all the payment records. The venue, the catering, the flowers, the music, the photographer, everything except your dress and the honeymoon. It all came from your father's accounts, every penny. The room spun. Becca grabbed the back of a chair to steady herself. How much? Over $150,000. One of the bridesmaids gasped. Christine looked like she might faint. And we threw him out, Becca whispered. We had every right to, Trish snapped. This was supposed to be a dignified, elegant affair. He would have ruined it with his working-class manners. He paid for all of it. Becca's voice rose to a shout. He paid for everything, and you told me that Ken should walk me down the aisle because Dad would embarrass us. I was protecting you. You were protecting your pride. Becca felt tears streaming down her face, ruining her carefully applied makeup. You made me throw away my father for your image. A commotion outside made them all turn. Through the window, Becca could see guests arriving in the parking lot, getting out of their cars in their expensive clothes and jewelry. They walked into the venue, then emerged minutes later looking confused and shocked. Word was spreading fast. No flowers, no food, no music, no ceremony set up except empty chairs. Becca heard fragments of conversation drifting up. The father canceled everything. He paid for it all, and they uninvited him. Can you imagine? Her phone buzzed. A voicemail from Dad. With shaking hands, she played it. His voice was calm, too calm, dead calm. Becca, I loved you more than anything in this world. I would have given you anything, but you made it clear I wasn't wanted. So I'm giving you exactly what you invited me to. Nothing. I hope Ken and Trish and the Collins family can provide the wedding they thought was so important. I'm done. Don't call me again unless you have something to say. Not them. You. The phone slipped from Becca's hand and clattered on the floor. Through the window, she watched more guests leaving, some taking pictures on their phones, spreading the story of the wedding that wasn't happening. And Becca stood there, in her $15,000 dress, surrounded by the ruins of the perfect day she destroyed. The Grandview Hotel emptied quickly. Some guests stayed for a while, trying to offer comfort or support, but without food, music, or even a proper ceremony, there was nothing to stay for. Drew's family left within an hour. Beatrice Collins, Drew's mother, kept repeating the same phrase over and over like a broken record. This has never happened to a Collins. Never. Not in 3 generations. Drew tried to salvage something from the disaster. He held Becca's hands and said, "We can go to City Hall on Monday. Get legally married. That's what really matters, right? Not the party." But Becca could barely hear him. She was scrolling through photos on her phone, her entire childhood captured in images. Dad teaching her to swim. Dad at her soccer games. Dad staying up all night to help her finish a science project. Dad crying at her college graduation. When had she stopped seeing him? Really seeing him? By evening, only Becca, Drew, Trish, and Ken remained in the empty bridal suite. The wedding dress felt heavy now, suffocating. Becca wanted to rip it off, but couldn't make herself move. "We should sue him," Trish said. She'd said it 5 times already. What he did was illegal. "We'll take him to court." Ken shook his head. He looked tired, older somehow. "We can't, Trish. I already spoke to our lawyer. Tom had every legal right to cancel services he contracted and paid for. We have no case. Then we'll..." "Mom." Becca's voice cut through the room like a knife. "Stop, honey. I'm just trying to..." "You told me Dad would embarrass us." Becca stood up. the wedding dress rustling around her. You said he was too simple, too working class, that Ken should walk me down the aisle because he was more appropriate for the Collins family image. I was thinking of your future. You were thinking of yourself. Becca's voice shook with anger. You wanted to show off to your rich friends. You wanted to prove you'd moved up in the world by marrying Ken. And I was stupid enough to believe you. Ken stepped forward. Becca, your mother only wanted... Don't. Becca held up her hand. You put your hand on my shoulder when Dad was standing there. You knew it would hurt him. You wanted him to know you'd replaced him. Ken's face flushed, but he didn't deny it. Dad paid for everything. Becca continued. $150,000. And you both knew that. You knew he was paying for every single thing, and you still convinced me to throw him out like he was nothing. Trish's expression hardened. Your father was always too sensitive, too emotional. He never understood that in the real world, appearances matter. Connections matter. The Collins family could open doors for you that Tom's little restaurant business never could. Something snapped inside Becca. Get out. What? Get out. Both of you. Leave. Becca, we're your parents. You're not my parent, Becca screamed. A parent doesn't use their child as a social climbing tool. A parent doesn't manipulate their daughter into betraying the one person who actually loved her unconditionally. Get out! Trish opened her mouth to argue, but Ken took her arm. Let's go, he said quietly. They left without another word. Drew and Becca sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Drew spoke. My mother called me an hour ago. She thinks we should postpone the marriage indefinitely. Becca looked at him. What do you think? I think. Drew ran his hand through his hair. I think I'm engaged to someone I don't really know. The Becca I fell in love with talked about her dad all the time. She showed me photos of the two of them. She told me stories about how he worked multiple jobs to give her everything she needed. She said he was her hero. I did say that, Becca whispered. So what happened? When did you become someone who could look your hero in the eye and tell him to leave? Becca had no answer. The next few days blurred together. Becca couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. She called her father's phone 50 times. It went straight to voicemail every time. She drove to his house. He wasn't there. She went to his restaurants. The staff said he'd taken emergency leave and they didn't know where he was. She left voicemails, each one more desperate than the last. Dad, please. I'm so sorry. I was wrong about everything. Please talk to me. But he never called back. Photos from the wedding disaster appeared on social media. Someone had recorded video of the empty venue, the confused guests, the chaos. The story spread online. Entitled, Bride Throws Out Father. Father cancels wedding he paid for. The comments were brutal. Thousands of strangers weighing in, and almost all of them sided with her father. Becca deleted all her social media accounts, but the damage was done. Drew became distant. His family's disappointment weighed on him. His mother's words, "Is this the kind of drama you want in your life?" echoed in his mind. 1 week after the wedding that never happened, Becca's phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Rebecca. This is Mitchell, your father's lawyer. Her heart leaped. Is Dad okay? Where is he? Tom is fine. He's asked me to call you with a message. Please, I need to talk to him. Tom is filing a civil suit against your mother and stepfather for emotional distress and reputation damage. He's not suing you, but that could change depending on how you proceed from here. Becca felt sick. Mitchell's voice was professional, cold. Tom has instructed me to tell you that unless you won, not your mother, not your stepfather, you can provide a genuine explanation for your actions and a sincere apology, he considers your relationship terminated. You have one chance to make this right, Rebecca. One. Don't waste it. The line went dead. Becca sat in her apartment, surrounded by wedding gifts she'd have to return, engagement photos that mocked her from the walls. Drew, was pulling away. Her mother only called to discuss legal strategy. Ken avoided her completely. She'd never felt more alone. That night, Becca pulled out a notebook and began to write. Not a text, not an email, a real letter. Words she should have said months ago. 2 weeks after the wedding disaster, I sat alone in my first restaurant, Reynolds Grill. It was a small place with worn booths and simple wooden tables. Nothing fancy. I'd opened it 25 years ago, with every penny I had, working 18-hour days to make it succeed. Now, I owned 5 restaurants across the city. Not elegant places where rich people went to be seen. Just honest restaurants where families came for good food at fair prices. Places I was proud of. But right now, I felt nothing. Just empty. I'd lost 15 pounds. My staff kept bringing me food I couldn't eat. My manager, Rita, sat with me sometimes, not saying anything, just being there. She'd worked for me for 20 years. She understood. Mitchell stopped by around noon. He slid into the booth across from me and pushed an envelope across the table. "It came to my office this morning," he said, "from Becca." I stared at the envelope. Handwritten address in Becca's familiar handwriting. The same handwriting I'd seen on birthday cards and school projects and thank you notes over the years. I didn't touch it. "Tom, you should read it." Did Trish write it? Did Ken? I don't think so. It's 8 pages, front and back. That's a lot of words for someone else to put in her mouth. I picked up the envelope, but didn't open it. "How are they? Trish and Ken?" Quiet. Their lawyer told them they'd lose badly if this goes to court. The story made local news. Public opinion is completely on your side. I felt no satisfaction hearing that. And Becca? Mitchell hesitated. The Collins family backed away from the marriage. Drew's mother convinced him to postpone indefinitely. Becca deleted all her social media after the backlash. "She's been calling your phone constantly." My phone sat on the table, still turned off. I'd left it that way since the wedding. "Read the letter, Tom. At least give her that." After Mitchell left, I sat there for another hour, staring at that envelope. Finally, as the sun set outside, I opened it. The first line hit me hard. "Dad, I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm begging for the chance to try to earn it back." I read slowly. Becca's words were raw, honest, painful. She didn't blame Trish or Ken or the Collins family. She blamed herself. She wrote about getting caught up in the fantasy of a better life after her mom remarried. How Ken's money made her feel important, sophisticated. How she started seeing my kindness as embarrassing instead of beautiful. "I let Mom poison my mind," she wrote. She kept saying I needed to upgrade my life, to move past working class limitations. And I listened. I started seeing you, the man who sacrificed everything for me, as something to be ashamed of. She described the moment at the hotel, how she couldn't look at my face because she knew she was betraying me, how she told herself it was just one day, that I'd understand, that it was for the best. "But Dad, I was wrong about everything. You worked 3 jobs to raise me alone after Mom left. You never missed a recital or a game or a parent-teacher conference even when you were exhausted. You taught me that real wealth is character, not money." And then I threw that lesson back in your face. The letter talked about consequences, how Drew's family had ended things, how Drew himself had grown distant, unable to respect someone who could discard her own father so easily. "I thought I was marrying into a better family," Becca wrote, "but I destroyed my real family to do it. And the Collins family dropped me the second I became inconvenient. You never would have done that. You proved that by raising me alone, when it would have been easier to walk away." Tears blurred the words. I wiped my eyes and kept reading. "I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'm begging for one chance to try to earn it back. Even if it takes the rest of my life. I'll wait as long as you need. I'll do whatever it takes." I just want my dad back. I love you. I never stopped loving you. I just forgot how to show it. Please, Dad. Please give me one chance. Love, Becca. I read the letter 3 times. By the third time, I was crying. Really crying. The first tears I'd allowed myself since that terrible day. This was my daughter. The real Becca. Not the person Trish had molded her into, not the image-obsessed girl who'd stood at that hotel entrance. This was the girl I'd raised. And she was still in there, under all the mistakes and pain. But I wasn't ready to forgive. Not yet. Trust once broken couldn't be fixed with just words. I pulled out my phone and turned it on for the first time in 2 weeks. 63 missed calls from Becca. 47 voicemails. I didn't listen to them. Instead, I sent one text message. Coffee next Wednesday, 2 p.m. Reynolds Grill. Just you. Nobody else. The response came 30 seconds later. I'll be there. Thank you, Dad. Thank you. I put the phone down and looked around my restaurant. This place represented everything I'd built from nothing. Hard work, honesty, treating people with respect. Maybe, somehow, Becca could learn those lessons again. Maybe we could rebuild what had been broken. But it would take time. And it would take work. Real work. Wednesday came. I arrived at the restaurant early, nervous in a way I hadn't felt in years. At exactly 2 p.m., the door opened. Becca walked in. She looked different, thinner, older somehow. Dark circles under her eyes. No makeup. Hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore jeans and a plain sweater. Not the designer clothes she'd been wearing lately. She saw me and stopped. We stared at each other across the distance. Slowly, she walked over. Dad, I held up my hand. Let me go first. We sat down. I took a breath. What you did broke my heart, Becca. Not just uninviting me from the wedding, but who you became in those months before. Someone who valued status over love. Who could look her father in the eye and tell him to leave? She was crying silently, but I continued. But that letter, that was my daughter. The real you. And I have to believe she's still in there. She is, Dad. I promise she is. I can't just forget this happened, I said honestly. Trust is broken. You're going to have to earn your way back, and it won't be easy or fast. I know. However long it takes. Whatever I need to do. We sat in silence for a moment. Then I said, we'll start small. Coffee. Once a week. Like we used to do when you were in college. And we'll see where it goes from there. But Becca, you need to figure out who you are. Not who your mother wants. Not who the Collins family wanted. Who is Rebecca Reynolds? Because until you know that, we can't rebuild anything real. She nodded, wiping her tears. I want to figure that out. Will you help me? That's what fathers do. We sat in that restaurant for 3 hours. Talking. Really talking. For the first time in months. It was careful. Painful. Honest. Nothing was fixed. But it was a start. As we stood to leave, Becca hesitated. Dad, if I ever do get married someday, would you consider walking me down the aisle? I looked at my daughter, humbled, broken, but maybe finally growing into someone real. Ask me again in a year. If we've rebuilt what was broken, if you've become someone who values the right things, then maybe. But you'll have to earn it. For the first time in weeks, I saw hope in her eyes. Not hope for a fancy wedding or perfect image, just hope for having her dad back. As I drove home that night, I thought about everything. The humiliation, the pain, the revenge. Did canceling the wedding fix anything? No, but it forced the truth into the open. Sometimes you have to lose everything to remember what actually matters. I didn't know if Becca and I would ever be completely okay again, but now we had a chance. A real one. Built on honesty and work, not money or status or anyone else's approval. And maybe that was the only foundation that would ever truly